I sat alone at a table for 6, with a $347 bill and 52 missed calls while my family posted BBQ photos. We got stuck. So sorry, Mom texted. At 7:40 p.m., but her happy Facebook photo was timestamped 7:31 p.m. 2 weeks later, at my brother's high-stakes investment meeting, I handed a folder to the investors. The way the color drained from my mother's face told me my birthday was finally being acknowledged. I'm 34. I'm a project coordinator. I own my apartment, bought it myself. No cosigner, no family loan, no favor called in. I handle my own problems. I show up when I say I will. I don't make scenes. I'm not the exciting one. I'm not the one people write speeches about at Thanksgiving. I'm the one who fixes the Wi-Fi when it goes down and drives Mom to her appointments without being asked twice. That's who I am. That's always been enough for me. My brother Ryan is 2 years younger and operates under a completely different set of rules. I don't say that with drama. I say it the way you describe weather. It's just the climate. Ryan has never paid a consequence that stuck. There was the winter his car note became my problem because Mom said he's going through something. There was my college graduation he missed because he had a lot going on, which, fair enough, turned out to mean a beach trip with friends. There was the $2,200 I lent him in 2019 that got quietly retired from family conversation after Mom said, "Let it go. He's trying." I let it go. I always let it go. That was my job. I was the reliable one, which, looking back, just meant I was the one they didn't have to worry about managing. Mom has a phrase she uses, like punctuation. Family comes first. She says it the way other people say "have a good day" automatically, warmly, without checking whether it's true. I grew up believing it. I built my whole approach to this family around it. That was probably my first mistake. So when my 34th birthday came around, I did what I always do. I planned it properly. I chose Marcelo's rooftop, good food, not cheap, but not a statement, just a nice place for a dinner that meant something to me. I sent the invite 3 weeks out because I know how this family operates and I wanted to give them no reasonable excuse. 6 people. Mom, Ryan, his girlfriend Julia, my cousin Sophie, and 2 family friends. I texted everyone individually. I got confirmations from all of them. Mom left a voice message. Of course, honey, wouldn't miss it, and I listened to it twice because it sounded like she meant it. Almost out of habit, I screenshotted the confirmation texts. I'm not even sure why. I just learned, somewhere along the way, to keep records. 2 weeks later, Ryan made an announcement. Ryan's announcement arrived on a Tuesday morning at 11:23 a.m. I know the exact time because I have the screenshot. It came through the family group chat, 3 fire emojis, a Facebook event link, and a message that said, "Family cookout, don't miss it. This weekend's gonna be legendary." No mention of my birthday dinner. No, hey, this is the same day as your thing. Just 3 fire emojis and a declaration, dropped into the same thread where my birthday invite had been sitting for 2 weeks. I scrolled up to make sure I wasn't misremembering. I wasn't. My invite was right there, 14 days old, with 5 confirmations underneath it. Mom's heart reaction, Julia's. Can't wait. Sophie's I'll bring potato salad, 2 more. Everyone who had said yes to me was now typing in real time about how they couldn't wait for Ryan's cookout. I watched the replies come in. I didn't say anything. There wasn't much to say that the situation wasn't already saying for itself. Ryan messaged me privately about an hour later. "It's just a casual thing," he wrote. "Nobody's canceling on you. Relax." That word "relax" did a lot of work in that sentence. It reframed my entirely reasonable reading of the situation as an emotional malfunction. Classic. I stared at it for a moment. Then I did what I'd apparently been training myself to do for years without realizing it. I screenshotted it. Didn't reply. Just added it to a folder I hadn't named yet. The next few days were quiet. No one brought up the conflict. No one acknowledged the overlap. The group chat filled up with cookout logistics, what to bring, what time to show up, whether Ryan was doing his famous ribs. I watched it the way you watch weather moving in from a distance. I told myself they'd show up to dinner. They'd confirmed. They were adults. Family comes first, that's what Mom always said. That was the last lie I told myself for free. 6 weeks after my birthday dinner, Ryan made another announcement. This one was bigger. A 2-day gathering at Lake Harmony Lodge lakefront property, catered food, a rented venue with a deck that fit 30 people. Ryan called it a chance to bring everyone together properly. He said he wanted to introduce the family to some new people he'd been connecting with. He said this summer was going to be different. He said a lot of things. The Facebook event went up on a Thursday morning, and by noon Mom had already commented family comes first underneath it, which I thought was a nice touch given the circumstances. I read the post twice. I thought about the rooftop at Marcello's. I thought about the breadbasket nobody touched. Then I thought about the $347 still sitting on my credit card statement, right there between a grocery run and a gas fill-up, unremarkable in every way except to me. Ryan had rented a lodge for a weekend. He couldn't honor a reservation 12 minutes from the family home, but he could rent a lodge. I noted the distance between those two facts and kept moving. Mom messaged me privately that same afternoon. "I know you'll help Ryan pull this together," she wrote. "You've always been the reliable one." There it was. Right on schedule. The family had a problem to manage, and I was the obvious solution not because they valued what I brought, but because they'd learned, over 34 years, that I would handle it quietly and not require anything in return. I stared at the message for a long moment. Then I added it to the folder, and then I replied, "Sure, I can help." Those 3 words did more work than anything I'd said in the previous 6 weeks. I volunteered for vendor coordination, specifically the catering confirmation and the guest headcount submission to the lodge. Both required my name and contact information on file. Ryan was thrilled. He called me his logistics guy inside of 24 hours. Mom told 2 people I had really stepped up. The family slotted me back into my lane and relaxed, because that's what happened when the fix-it guy showed up. Everything got easier. Nobody had to think too hard. What nobody was tracking, because why would they, was that the lodge had a hard deadline. Final headcount and catering confirmation were due no later than 72 hours before the event. It was in the venue contract, buried in the 3rd paragraph of the terms. I know because I read every word of it. I read it the way I read everything now, carefully and with a folder open. I also made one other move that week. I reached out to Miguel. He owns a food truck. We've known each other for years, and he was one of the people who actually showed up to Marcello's that night and waited almost an hour before I told him to head home. I mentioned the lodge party casually, told him I'd like him to come, that it would be good to catch up. He said sure. I passed his name to Ryan as a friend I want to bring. Ryan added him to the guest list without a second thought. He was very generous that way. Ryan called me his logistics guy. He had absolutely no idea what that meant. Let me tell you what was in the folder. Not because I need you to feel sorry for me. I'm past that. I'm telling you because the folder is the whole story, and the whole story is just timestamps. The first item was the confirmation texts. 6 people, all dated 3 weeks before my birthday, all saying yes. Mom's voice message, of course. Wouldn't miss it transcribed and saved with the date attached. Those went in first, back when I didn't even know I was building anything. Just habit. Just a man who'd learned, somewhere along the way, that memories are unreliable but screenshots aren't. The second item was Sophie's Instagram story. Posted at 12:14 p.m. on my birthday, a Thursday. Backyard setup at the family home. Streamers. Ryan at the grill. Caption, pre-game. I remember looking at it on my lunch break and feeling something go very quiet inside me. Not angry. Just quiet. I screenshotted it and put my phone face down on my desk and finished the rest of my workday. The third item was Mom's Facebook photo. Posted at 7:31 p.m. She's smiling, Ryan's arm around her, backyard lights behind them, caption, family first, timestamped 7:31 p.m. I want you to hold that time in your head for a second. Her apology text arrived at 7:40 p.m. 9 minutes later, honey, we got stuck, unforeseen circumstances, so sorry, we'll celebrate soon. 9 minutes between the Facebook photo and the apology. 9 minutes between documenting her choice and pretending it was something that happened to her. I read it twice. I saved both. I put them side by side in the folder so the gap was visible. The fourth item was the call log. 52 missed calls across 4 phone numbers over 4 hours. 47 voicemails, all time-stamped, none of which I returned that night. I didn't need to. I already knew what they'd say. I've been hearing the same voicemail my whole life. Some version of you know how it is, some version of we'll make it up to you, some version of don't make this bigger than it needs to be. The folder didn't need their explanations. The folder had their evidence. The fifth item was the receipt. The actual paper one, which I'd kept because I keep things now, $347. Table for 6. One person, Marcello's, printed at 9:11 p.m. I folded it once and put it in the small inside pocket of my jacket, and I left it there. I wasn't sure why yet. I just knew I wasn't ready to throw it away. What struck me, sitting with all of it, was that I hadn't gone looking for any of this. The family produced it themselves publicly, enthusiastically, because it never once occurred to them that the person they were ignoring might be watching. That's the thing about being the reliable one. People stop performing for you. They stop managing how they look in your eyes. You become furniture, useful, familiar, and completely invisible. The documentation layer was almost complete. I needed two more things. I had a casual text exchange with Miguel the following week. He confirmed he'd been at Marcelo's that night, arrived just after 7, waited close to an hour, noted I was the only family member who showed. I didn't ask him to do anything with that. I just let the conversation exist on record with a date attached. A few days later, in a work thread where my birthday came up in passing, my colleagues Brennan and Delia both confirmed the same evening from their end they'd been there. They'd seen the empty chairs. They knew what the night looked like. 3 external witnesses. No stake in the outcome. No reason to embellish. The folder was full. I wasn't angry anymore. Anger is inefficient. I was thorough. I want to be honest about what I was planning, because I think honesty matters here even when the plan isn't pretty. 72 hours before the lodge event, I was going to step back from the catering coordination. Not cancel it. Not sabotage it. Just quietly remove myself as the point of contact and let the confirmation deadline pass without Ryan realizing it hadn't been handled. I would send Ryan a text clear, documented, timestamped letting him know I was stepping back and that he'd need to finalize it himself. What happened after that was his responsibility. It always had been. I was just the only one who'd been pretending otherwise. At the event itself, if the moment presented itself, and I believed it would, because Ryan always manufactures moments for himself, I was going to address the birthday. Directly, in front of the people Ryan most wanted to impress. I'd learned through the group chat that his new people were potential investors in whatever business idea he was currently building his personality around. I didn't know their names yet. I knew they were coming. I knew Ryan needed them to see a certain version of himself. And I knew that version had a very specific weakness. It required everyone in the room to play their assigned role, including me. I wasn't going to shout. I wasn't going to threaten. I was going to open the folder and let the timestamps do the work. I was going to let Miguel stand where he was standing and say what he knew. I was going to put the receipt on the table and let it be what it was, a $347 document of a choice this family made and then called unforeseen circumstances. That was the plan. Now let me tell you the risks, because I thought about every one of them. Mom would feel ambushed. She would reframe it as me attacking the family rather than holding a mirror up to it. That was almost certain. Ryan would say I was embarrassing myself, that I was making his event about my feelings, that I'd always been like this, which would be funny if it weren't so tired. Julia would probably cry. Sophie would probably post about it. I might walk out of that lodge with no functional family left, and I knew it, and I sat with that knowledge for longer than I expected to. There was a second risk that was quieter and harder to name. I had been the fix-it guy for 34 years. That role had weight. It had structure. It organized my relationship to every person in that family who called me first, who assumed I'd handle it, who took my steadiness as a given. If I dismantled it, I didn't know what would be left in its place. That wasn't a small thing to walk into. But I thought about Marcelo's. I thought about the bread basket. I thought about 9 minutes. Then I made one final decision. I was going to bring the receipt from Marcelo's. The actual paper one. Lake Harmony Lodge was exactly what Ryan had promised. Lakefront deck, string lights, a cooler the size of a sedan parked near the railing. About 24 people spread across the space, some I recognized, some I didn't. The water was visible through the trees, catching the late afternoon light the way expensive venues always seem to arrange for themselves. Ryan had done well. I'll give him that. When Ryan commits to an image, he commits. I arrived on time, shook hands, accepted a drink, and scanned the room. I found Miguel near the deck railing with a beer, exactly where I'd expected him to be. I found Ryan holding court near the far end, louder than usual, more expansive the version of himself he kept polished for occasions that mattered. And I found the two people I'd been looking for. A man I'd later learn was named Fletcher, and a woman named Wren, both listening to Ryan with the particular attentiveness of people who were quietly deciding something. They were the new people, the ones Ryan needed to see a certain version of himself tonight. Mom was radiant. She hugged me at the door and said, "I'm so glad you're here," with complete sincerity, the way she always does, the way that used to be enough. I smiled and told her the venue looked beautiful because it did and because I meant it. I wasn't here to ruin a party. I was here because Ryan had built this party on a foundation he'd never actually checked. The caterer's van was not in the parking lot. Ryan hadn't noticed yet. An hour in, he noticed. I watched it happen from across the deck. The conversation with the venue coordinator, the slight shift in Ryan's posture, the private calculation running behind his eyes. He crossed the deck toward me with the specific walk of a man who needs something and has already decided you're going to provide it. He pulled me aside near the railing, away from the main group, voice low and tight. "What happened with the catering confirmation?" he said. I told him I'd stepped back from the coordination 3 days ago. That I'd sent him a text which I had, time-stamped, still in my phone letting him know he'd need to finalize it himself. That I'd assumed he'd handled it from there. He stared at me. "Why would you do that?" I looked at him for a moment. "Unforeseen circumstances," I said. "So sorry." The color that moved across Ryan's face in that second was something I won't describe in detail. He knew exactly what those words referenced. He knew where they came from and whose voice they were borrowing and what I was telling him by using them. Fletcher and Rin were 20 feet away. Ryan's voice, which he was trying very hard to keep controlled, was not quite as controlled as mine. "You did this on purpose," he said. "I learned from the best," I said. That was when he made his mistake. Ryan has always performed best under pressure, and the performance he reached for now was the one he'd used his whole life, the long-suffering older brother, managing an unreasonable person. He stepped back toward the group, raised his voice just enough to pull the room's attention, and said, with a tired, almost affectionate shake of his head, "I don't know why you always have to make everything about yourself." The deck went quiet. Everyone was looking at us now, including Fletcher, including Rin, including Miguel. Ryan had just handed me the room. I waited a beat. Then I spoke at the same volume I would use to order coffee. "I'd like to answer that," I said. "It might take a minute." I took out my phone. I pulled up the folder. I didn't narrate dramatically, I just shared dates. The confirmation texts, all 6 of them, 3 weeks before my birthday. Sophie's Instagram story from 12:14 p.m. on the day of my birthday, backyard setup. Ryan at the grill, everyone accounted for. Mom's Facebook photo from 7:31 p.m. smiling, Ryan's arm around her, string lights. And then the apology text, time-stamped 7:40 p.m., 9 minutes later. "Unforeseen circumstances, so sorry, we'll celebrate soon." I let that sit for a second. Then I reached into the inside pocket of my jacket and placed the receipt on the table, the actual paper one, Marcelo's, $347. 9:11 p.m., table for 6. I smoothed it flat with one hand, the way you'd set down something that had been waiting a long time to be put somewhere permanent. I looked up at Miguel. He nodded once, the small, clean nod of someone who doesn't need to embellish. "I was there that night," he said. "I waited about an hour." He was the only one from the family who showed. The deck was completely silent. I looked at Ryan. Then I said the only thing left to say. "I've been the fix-it guy my whole life. That night, I just needed someone to come to dinner." I didn't look at Fletcher. I didn't look at Rin. I didn't look at Mom, whose face had gone the color of the lodge's white exterior. I just stood there, in the quiet I had spent 6 weeks building toward, and let it be what it was. Ryan said nothing. For the first time in 34 years, he had nothing to say. I didn't wait for the room to process. I picked up the receipt, put it back in my jacket pocket, thanked the venue coordinator on my way out, and walked to my car. Radio off, windows down. 40 minutes of highway and dark air. And for the first time in a long time, I wasn't carrying something that belonged to someone else. The fallout arrived in predictable shapes. Mom called 11 times in the first 48 hours. Her voicemails followed the architecture I'd grown up with: hurt, reframe, pivot to family cohesion. "I hope you know how much we love you." Silence. Another call. I listened to each one. I didn't return them immediately. Not out of punishment. I don't think she's a cruel person. I think she built a family story she needed to be true, and I'd put a crack in the wall she'd been plastering over for 30 years. That takes time. I was willing to give her the time. Ryan didn't call. I hadn't expected him to. Julia sent a paragraph containing the phrase "you humiliated him in front of people who could have helped him," which I read once and set aside. Sophie posted a vague Instagram story about family drama and deleted it 6 hours later. Through a mutual contact, I heard that Fletcher and Ren didn't move forward with Ryan's pitch. I want to be precise about this. That wasn't my goal. I walked into the lodge carrying something that was already mine, a receipt, a timestamp, a record of a night that happened exactly the way I said it did. What people did with that information was their choice. Ryan had always believed consequences were things that happened to other people. I think that belief got quietly revised somewhere between the parking lot and his drive home. Miguel texted 2 days later. 4 words. "You doing okay, man?" I replied immediately. I always do. For the people who show up. In the weeks that followed, I didn't cut anyone off dramatically. I just reorganized. Mom's calls about managing Ryan, I let those go to voicemail. Ryan's eventual text asking if I could look over something for him, I read it, sat with it, and didn't reply. Not forever. Just long enough to feel what it was like to not be the answer to a problem I hadn't created. I still have the receipt. Same inside pocket, right where I put it at Marcelo's. I don't carry it as evidence anymore. I keep it because it reminds me of the night I understood what the reliable one actually meant and decided to change the list of people I'm reliable for. I'm still reliable. I just got more selective about it.